going on, everybody? Welcome to Pillow Talk with Paul Goneau. Today, my guest is actor, musician, sculptor, and comedian, Nikki Ashworth.
Hi, everyone.
So how are you?
I'm good. Getting here was a harrowing journey, let me tell you.
Yes, please tell me about this guy.
I'm so proud of myself. So I will say in my defense, I am your typical Toronto snob. Like, I grew up in Toronto. Mm-hmm. I don't know Mississauga at all. I'm absolutely one of those people. You can call me names. It's absolutely true.
I don't care.
It's relevant, though.
I've been here for like 8-9 years now, and there's still like a large section of Mississauga
that you don't know. Plus, I don't drive, so I'm like extra useless. And so when you invited me to come, of course, I was very excited to come, but I realized I had to take public transit, mostly because I didn't want to pay for an Uber all the way, because I'm cheap.
It's a bit.
It's a bit, right? It's some coinage. So I thought it would be much easier to get here than it was, so I have a lot of relief I got here.
I swear when I told you, like, oh, it's only one bus from Union, I swear I wasn't making that up.
I believe you. I just think there's cuts. You know, shit's been going down in Toronto, so I believe you. At some point this existed.
Or something,
I don't think you straight up lied to my face.
Yes, I swear.
Think you swear. So I'm just relieved to have actually made it. It got to the point where at one point I was on the express bus, which I don't know, was called like 21B or something, to Lisgar. I don't even know how you pronounce it. But I was the only one on the bus. And it got really creepy. Like, I was like, he could just be taking me to stab me. I don't know where I'm going.
This guy doesn't work for Go?
Yeah, no. You know, like, why does he have a knife in his pocket? I'll find out later,
Why isn't he wearing a uniform?
Yeah. Why is he covered in blood?
Yeah.
I should have asked these questions before I got on the bus.
The blood was a red flag for sure.
It was just a literal red flag, red knife. So I'm just very relieved I made it. And
no, I feel luckily well, I don't want to say luckily because you live in Toronto, but I've run into more odd people taking the TTC than I have taking the transit system here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I'm only comparing it to one time I've been on this public transit system, but there was a guy who was a tricky person on my way here too, so I managed to avoid talking to him for the most part, but when I was waiting for the train to take me to the bus here, he was asking everybody questions, and he was generally harmless, but the stuff he was asking people was insane. Like, it was, well, insane's not the right word. Categorize this for me. So this one guy, he walked up to me and this other dude, and the guy had a seat beside him. He goes, "Hey, can I sit by you?" And which is, thoughtful. Like, is it okay if I can have this seat? And so the guy's like, "Yeah, sure, of course." So immediately he's like, "Hey, so, where are you going? Are you going, there's that, TV place, it's all the vintage TVs, you can see, there's Elvis's TV there, and they got Madonna's. No, not Madonna's, I mean Marilyn Monroe, yeah, they have her TV too, and it sounds really cool, but, I'm going to Aldershot," or wherever the hell he said he was going. And then he just randomly changes the subject and goes, Do you have, a girlfriend outside? And the guy was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, outside of here? There's a girlfriend.
Like outside of the bus?
I don't know what he meant.
Yeah,
I think he meant outside of the station, because at this point we were still at Union Station waiting to go on the train. But he was just asking really personal questions. And at one point, I got up to check my schedule, and he went right up to me and he goes, "Hey, are you going to so-and-so?" And I just said, "Nope." And I just walked away because I didn't want to have a conversation.
It's the best thing to do, I feel like.
Yeah, it was just a little intense for me. He seemed harmless, but it was something, especially since, I was on that... Imagine being on that desolate bus alone with that guy talking to me the whole time. That would have been a lot. Strangers love talking to me. People love asking me for directions. That's a big one.
You look approachable.
I guess I do. Yeah, people say I have that kind of a look or that kind of a face. And so, yeah, people do ask me things. And I'm happy to help people if it's a genuine question or they're lost, or that's fine, right? It's just that other group, I would say in the 20% that talk to me, that it's a different thing entirely.
Have you had horrible encounters taking the TTC?
Oh yeah.
What's the worst?
The worst?
Yeah, let's go to the worst.
Okay, this is kind of graphic, but the worst thing that happened to me was I was in my 20s and I was taking the subway home from work. And when I got on, I don't remember what station it was. There was a guy, I remember he was wearing like a blue windbreaker, like an 80s windbreaker. And he sat across from me, and his posture was like this, like, and he was just like staring. He's going, "I'm gonna fuck you." And he just,
that's what he said to you?
And he started saying he was going to fuck me. And so I was like, well, this is scary. So I got off at the next stop.
Right.
He followed me.
Oh my God.
Started following me home. And then I realized, oh my God, he's like legit stalking me. Like, and I just thought, okay, if I go to my house, he's going to push open the door and force himself inside. So I was like,
and you were living on your own.
And I was living on my own at the time. I was living in a basement. So there was an IGA, and I went into the IGA, and I started wandering around trying to lose him. And then at that point, I called the cops at the IGA. So I was like, I'm being followed.
Yeah.
So they gave me I gave them a description. And then I managed to eventually lose him in the IGA. Like, he was lost. And then I ran home, and I locked the door. And then the cops came about 5 minutes later. And they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I think so." But they took it really seriously, which I was really glad about.
They should. That's
and not
fucked.
only it was fucked, and not only that, but like they took it. I mean, I like ACAB. I'm very much that person, but I do appreciate that they took it seriously enough that even days later they called me back to follow up to see if I was okay, had I seen him again, and I wasn't expecting that. I mean, mind you, this was a while ago, right? So maybe they don't like care the same way they used to, but I appreciate that they did that. So that was probably the scariest one.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real bummer of a story. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I assumed it was going to be some, like, fucking creep.
Yeah, a stalker creep.
And I have, like, one that I was, like, witness to and kind of intervened in. Actually, I kind of have a newer one. I'll tell my first one, actually. So the TBC one was, I was at Long Branch Loop, and it was, like, early in the day. Like, I mean, maybe, it was before noon, I want to say, okay? And there's, like, families, like, Long Branch Loop is, like, this long bus terminal. It's not like a circle, it's just, like, a long fucking line, you know?
Why do they call it a loop?
I don't know. It's, like, it's weird. But anyways, yeah, so this guy's walking the distance of the whole bus terminal. And, like, I saw him from a distance, but I didn't really take in what was happening until he got, like, super, like, close to me, maybe within, like, 20 or something feet. And this guy was literally walking. He had his pants down.
Oh, no.
Underwear down, like, fully exposed. And he was, like, he was on something. And he was just, like, walking by. He walked by some kids, and I saw, like, their mother kind of, like, turn them. I don't know if they noticed or whatever, but, like, there was fucking... no one should see that, but especially not fucking kids. Like, I've seen a dick before, you know? If I see some dude streaking, I'm just... You know, I might make fun of him or something. It's not like that for fucking kids and, like, families and stuff, you know?
And it's scary.
And I legit, like, just shoved the guy and was like, pull up your fucking pants, dude.
Good for
and
you.
He didn't say anything. He just kind of, like, pulled up his pants, and he was just walking. Like, he was barely picking up his feet. Like, they were just dragging. And it was just... I don't know. It's things like what we're talking about that I'm like, why do people have kids? Why did I have a daughter?
Actually, you reminded me of another story. This one's funnier in its own way. It's also a full frontal nudity story on the subway. It was like 2 years ago. I got off at Dundas Station because I was going to the Eaton Center for something. And you know those steps where it takes you from like one side of the station to other, whether you're going whether you're going north or south. So it's like, I don't know if you know, but there's like a staircase that will take you to one side or the other.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I have to go on the other side. So I was going down the steps, and I was like, what's that smell? And then I turned, and there was a completely naked man. Completely naked. No clothes. Like, no clothes to be found.
Shoes?
No shoes.
Okay.
And he was smearing his shit all over the wall. And it was on the escalator, and the poo was like flopping down the escalator.
Oh my god. That's a mess.
And the crazy part is too, like, I think this is a funny detail. He was jacked. Like, somehow that made it funnier.
Yeah.
That it's like this, like, really, like, roidsy kind of guy is like smearing poo everywhere. I mean, obviously he was not mentally well, but I was like, oh no. And so I immediately turned around and I went to the ticket booth at Dundas and I like knocked on the thing and the guy was like, what? Right? Because they don't want to talk to anybody. Right. And I was like, there is a naked man smearing his poo on the wall. The guy just burst out laughing and he was in tears and he was like, okay. And I was like, I'm not kidding. And he's like, I know you're not.
That
He's
guy.
Like,
it's
I know.
Jim.
It's who knows, right? But like he seemed to understand what I was like. He knew, right? Or he was expecting it. So I was like, okay, bye, good luck. And then I went the other way around.
Oh, that's so gross.
So that was probably one of like the grosser things I've seen. But I mean,
I love his like how he was about it too. Like this guy was just a regular. You know,
yeah,
or
maybe.
he just worked in Toronto for so long.
Yeah, like he was like, yeah, that's a thing that happens.
Yeah,
I think that was more so his attitude was less like, oh, it's Jim, but more, oh yeah, that sounds like something that would happen at Dundas Station. So I mean, I did feel badly for the guy, the naked dude, only because obviously like he wasn't in his right mind, right? Yeah. Something wasn't going on. So it's like, I felt bad, but at the same time, if you can kind of separate the two concepts, like the empathy concept, it is just funny.
It is funny.
You know? So
it's gross, but it's
gross. Funny. So I kind of try to balance both.
You didn't want to walk that way.
I still care. Yeah, I still care about this man, and I hope he's okay.
Hope Jim's all right.
Yeah, I hope Jim's okay. I hope he's not naked smearing poo somewhere now. So
I mean, everyone smeared poo somewhere, but like a TTC station? Come on, man. Little class, Jim.
But the escalator poo, that's
so gross. I'm just thinking about who's cleaning that.
Imagine it flopping.
That's
like, you know when the escalator's going down? Like, imagine a poo like a slinky going down.
Oh my god. Just on everything. That's so gross.
It's so gross.
One time I pooed in a classmate's pool. I was like really young. I was like in middle school, so don't judge me. Well, judge me less, okay? He stole my I Mother Earth scenery and fish. And I know he stole it because, so back in the day, I used to like paint like models, like model cars and like just like shit like that. Yeah. And I accidentally got some silver paint on the cover of like the CD, like without, not the case, the actual book, you know, when people actually bought that shit.
Yes.
And it was the only one that looked like that. And I saw it at his house one day after like not being able to find it. And like he lied to me and I knew, you know? And I was like, that's mine, man. And then one day we were just like out really late. We're like, this is Matt Haw's house. And I'm like, fuck Matt Haw. And I literally just like leaned over the pool and pooped in.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty outrageous.
Yeah, the most outrageous thing, I don't even think I wiped. I think that was
the most outrageous part.
Yeah, that's the grossest part of the whole story.
I don't have any poo revenge stories, thankfully.
Worth it, though. You know what? Worth it. I felt better. I was like, I have the CD, bro. You're going to be swimming in my poop for the whole summer.
I used to get I Mother Earth and Our Lady Peace confused all the time because of like the similar, their music wasn't the same, but their names, like I, R, Lady, Mother, Earth, Peace.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same vibe to me, so I used to interchange those bands all the time.
All right.
But I preferred Our Lady Peace.
You did, eh?
Yeah.
I like Our Lady Peace as well.
Back then I did. I don't think I have an opinion anymore. But I had the Clumsy CD. Like,
that's a great album.
Everyone had it.
Every single song on that album is solid.
Yeah, it was a good album. Yeah. But, I mean, have I listened to it in 20...
Right.
Whatever years?
They had a few hits
I have not.
sprinkled out throughout the years. But nothing like that album, I don't think.
It was a good album. Yeah. Solid Canadian album.
So, you were in bands before, or you were just a singer before?
So I was a singer in a band that I helped found. I was the founder of it. I was in a band for 3 years. We played all over Toronto. It was a really interesting, fun time in my life. It meant a lot to me at the time. Like, it really did. And I have a lot of happy memories from that experience and a lot of bittersweet memories. Like, it weaves through many emotional states, but I'm really proud I did it. And overall, I achieved what I wanted to, which was I wanted to play like all the venues I could, right? Like I wanted to play at the Horseshoe, and I wanted to play Lee's Palace, and I wanted to play the Rivoli, and I wanted like I had like this bucket list of like places I wanted to play.
Yeah.
And I had some like amazing experiences. We had an EP. We were working on a second EP when the band broke up, so that never saw the light of day.
What was the name of the band?
Jilted Lovers Club.
All right.
Yeah. So it was like a really fun, exciting time, and it makes me think of just being younger. And I was very proud of what we did, and I've always been a singer and a performer, and I wrote the songs with my colleagues, and I was really proud of what we did. It was kind of a 90s. Based on, you know, who we were in our age. It was a very 90s influence, kind of like pop indie album. So we didn't necessarily
I'm thinking like Alanis Morissette almost.
No, it was more like a lot of people would see, I don't know if I necessarily agree with this, but we would get a lot of Chili Peppers meets No Doubt.
I love both of those
That was
bands.
kind of like the vibe. I mean, not that we were ska in any way, but one of the guitarists was heavily influenced by Frusciante, like John Frusciante.
Oh, yeah.
And so like that style really came out. But it definitely had like an indie vibe, and it was, a lot of the lyrics were very like tongue in cheek, and they played a lot on words, and I had concepts of things. So like one of the songs that we did was called Army of Daughters. And it was based on a quote that I actually heard a guy say once at a party, where he said, "It's like there's an army of daughters who reject men in bars." And I was like, that is a song lyric. I was like, I'm taking that, I'm making a whole concept based on that. So it was a song about me leading an army of daughters who reject men in bars, and then all the bullshit you have to deal with as a woman when you're walking down the street and going to
I'm
bar.
100% gonna check this shit.
Yeah, I can send it to you.
I'm 100%. I'm like so...
yeah, I mean, I think it still
great.
Holds up. Like, so it definitely gave me a lot of experience being comfortable on stage.
Was that your introduction to performing, or you had been doing stuff before?
No, I did when I was a teenager and just like regular elementary school. Like I didn't go to like an arts high school or anything, but in high school I was very fortunate because we had an amazing music teacher who had been like the music teacher of my high school for something like 30 years, and she really built a foundation for my school. And so every year we did a full Broadway musical, and we were not a performing arts high school, so the fact that like she actually went to the trouble, and like her husband pitched in, and there was an orchestra, and there were set builders, and it was all like all the kids pitching in. So I did those musicals when I was in high school. And then, you know, just like skits and other performances when I was younger. And then before that, I was a child actor for a little while.
A child actor?
I know. It's such like a... Not that I did like crazy
anything like
things.
Notable that like people would know?
Nothing like crazy impressive. I did an ad for Polaroid.
All right.
I did a series of commercials for Lime Ridge Mall in Hamilton. I still don't know where that is. I don't know if that mall still exists.
Got paid though, baby.
Got paid. I did the cartoon voice of children in a Smarties commercial, like an animated Smarties commercial, when it was around the time where they were introducing blue Smarties.
Okay.
And so they created this character named Inspector Smarty, and the whole concept was like, you have to guess what the new Smarties color is. And so they had this big campaign with this character named Inspector Smarty. And I was like one of the kids who was helping the professor. Okay. So like I don't really remember much. I just remember it was like, wow, new blue Smarties. Thanks, Inspector. Like I remember like direct lines.
Yeah.
Like I remember saying that. But I didn't do it for very long. I did some like print catalog work too for like, this shows how old I am. There used to be a department store called Simpsons.
I remember it.
Okay, so I did like catalog work for Simpsons.
Okay.
Like remember like if you were going up and down escalators and you would see like ads for like this department or whatever, I was in those ads.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I do remember that store.
Yeah, it was mostly
We're close. We're close in
We're
age.
saying it, yeah. So it was I didn't do it for very long. I don't really remember a lot about it. Like I remember I was interested. Like, it wasn't something my parents at all, like, were like, you should do this. It was like, I was like, how do kids do that? That sounds like fun. I'd like to do that.
Well, that's
and
good.
then I did it for a while. And then at one point I was like, I no longer would like to do this. And they were like, okay. And then it was just as easy to bring me out of it, you know, but I was always comfortable with it and like aware of it. And then when I was in high school, I went through as many courses as I could of Second City that was available to me. Nice. So then I did improv in high school, which I'm now kind of starting to do again, which I'm so glad it's like riding a bike.
I would like to like dip my toes in. I think I did stand up at Second City. And I thought about maybe doing the improv, or if I could like find the right people, just like fucking try to insert myself in like a small way just to see if I'm like decent at it.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
I remember just doing it in like high school drama class and being like in love with it. I just thought it was so fun. Yeah.
No, it's really fun. And like the biggest difference between doing improv and doing stand-up is, as you know, when you're doing stand-up, you're by yourself. Right, you're completely, like, I would say it's a braver, brave isn't necessarily the right word. When you're doing stand-up, you're completely vulnerable, right? You're on your own. You're responsible for everything. If you fall, you fall, right? If you bomb, you bomb. You're by yourself. But when you're doing improv, you literally have other people on stage with you that can help you. So it's like, even if you're not in that moment doing a good job, the whole goal, at least ideally, everyone needs to be pushing each other up, right? Yes and, yes and, yes and. And so by doing that, you feel really supported. So even when you personally might not be your best, the fall doesn't feel so far down because you're with other people. Yeah. So it's just a nice feeling, like it's a nice community. Like, I don't really ever feel I bomb in improv, but I've certainly bombed as a comedian.
So what got you into stand-up?
Oh, it's a weird story. It started by accident, like genuinely by accident. Do you know Steve DeGay by chance?
I know. I feel like I might have met him somewhere along the way.
He's a lovely dude, and he's been doing, I think he's in his second year or third year of doing stand-up in Toronto. He's been doing very well. He's very funny. He plays guitar a lot of the time. And he and I used to work together many years ago. And I had found out through Facebook that he had recently gotten into comedy. Keep in mind, this was like 2 years ago that he was doing comedy. And I thought, wow, how cool of him. How brave. That's so exciting. I could never do that. Like, it was like a whole other thing I wouldn't dare touch. I always thought it was like the scariest thing in the world to do performance-wise. Like, nothing else could be as vulnerable as doing comedy. So he was in a contest, and I was off of work at the time. So I let him know, like, hey, I've been promising I'm going to go to something. I'm going to come to this. Like, I want to support you. I want to vote for you. So I saw him perform, and he was great. And then after that main contest was over, they just had a regular open mic. He left because he was done. I had nothing else to do. Like, I was on holiday. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to stay here and watch everybody. Okay. So I watched, like, 30 people do, like, 4 minutes. It was a lot of people. Like, definitely over 25. And I just had this moment where I realized it wasn't like, how do I say this properly? It wasn't special. I realized that anybody could do it. I think I got it into my head that you had to be good immediately. Like somehow like it just like, you know, you're either great or you're not great, and there was nothing in between. And some did better and some did worse. But I thought, well, fuck, I can try too. Like, I'm not worse than them. Like, they're just people. I'm a person too. And so, towards it was really late. It was like almost 1 a.m. And then one of the last people they called didn't show up. He was gone already. And so I snuck over to the person who was hosting, and I just said, hi, is there any way like I can take his place instead? And I told them that was the first time I had ever tried, and I didn't know what I was doing. So they were like, yeah, we'll put you on last if that's cool. And I was like, sure. So my very first set was like 1:15 in the morning to maybe the wait staff and like maybe 2 other comics. Okay. And it was not funny. I don't know.
What did you talk about?
I talked about my brain.
Okay.
I talked about my medical issues at the time and like some of the morbid jokes I was making, just in general, like things I'd been saying to friends for a long time.
That you thought was,
that I thought were funny or just kind of amusing, and it was pretty dark. And I don't really recall having laughs necessarily, but when I was done, I was so excited because I was like, I did it. Like that, I thought this would be way harder, and I did it. And it won't be as, or at least my thinking at the time was, I'll never feel as scared because I got that first one over with. Mm-hmm. And so the next week I went back, and then I went back.
Same place?
Same place, but then I started meeting people and asking them, like, where do you go? And I realized the community was actually very helpful, and like people wanted to help. And I felt like in overall people really want you to succeed. And I was surprised. I didn't think it would be like that. I thought it would be a lot more competitive somehow, or a lot more mean.
No, I feel like most people are like that. I mean, there are the mean and competitive people, but they're not, like, the overwhelming majority is supportive.
Exactly.
And stuff like that,
so it started by accident, and then I don't know why, but I just was like, I'm going to keep going. And it's been a little over, I just had my 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I just kept going, and okay, like it's just this random thing.
You're good. If you're enjoying it, I mean, why
this, like,
why not?
Strange hobby, you know, and I'm not doing this to be like famous or like my only goal has only been I just want to get better.
Yeah.
That's it. I just want to get better, and ideally have the respect of people I respect. Like that's it, really.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, so
that's a great story. I'm so used to hearing just like, oh, well, I got it was a breakup, or like someone passed away, or like so many stories are just like
it was
disasters.
Me being bored, and like had I not had the day off work the next day, it wouldn't have happened. Like the only reason I could stay up so late on a school night was because it was on holiday. So I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll try. Yeah, why not? Yeah. So it was a weird mistake / accident that I continue to perpetuate.
So the brain bit, which we can like get into after, but like, is it still kind of what you're doing now? Is it kind of like
oh, you mean like set wise, like when sometimes like it's an easy sword to fall on because you know I'm a cishet white blonde girl who has a full-time job, so it's like I'm not gonna be like complaining about like my life is so hard, right? So it's like something I have that not necessarily other people can talk about in a joking way, and I'm very comfortable talking about it, and I have a lot of stories, and over the years I've made a lot of morbid jokes about, you know, the situation, but thankfully it also had a happy ending. So it's like when I'm saying these things, it's okay. Like I'm lucky. I'm around. It's not as bad as it might sound at the start. So I kind of play with that juxtaposition because it sounds scarier than it.
I imagine some people like question the legitimacy.
Absolutely. Like I did a show a couple weeks ago at Comedy Bar East, and there was this great couple that were in the front who came to see the show, and they were such an engaged, like they were there to laugh. They were a great audience. And after the show, they were talking to comedians, and I had done a set that involved it, and the guy said to me, he goes, yeah, but that's not true, right? And I was like, oh, no, it's absolutely true. And I said, because, you know, as you know, like a lot of people in comedy lie, which is fair game. Like a lot of people make up stories or they embellish things or whatever. Yeah. And so he said, no, it's not true. And I went, no, it's absolutely true. And he couldn't believe it. He was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was like, there's nothing to be sorry about. I was like, I'm comfortable talking about it, and it's funny, and I see ways to joke about it. Right. So like, no, of course, like I appreciate you caring, but I'm fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, like I'm talking totally about it on stage in front of strangers for a reason, right?
Yeah, and I definitely, like for me personally, I would not feel comfortable making jokes like that if they weren't mine to make. You know what I mean? That's fair. Like, I would never, like, pretend.
Yeah, those aren't the kind of jokes that you want to make. I'm not against, like, making up things, but it's just...
It's a little, like...
distasteful.
Yeah, like, I personally don't think that's a good route to go.
Yeah.
And so, like, sometimes I do have people, like, I've never had someone straight up say to me, like, you're lying, like, that's not true. Like, I've never had someone say that, but if someone truly got in my face about it, I can't imagine that ever happening. But I could literally prove to them very easily how real it is.
A scar?
I do not have a scar, but I can show them pictures of my brain tumor.
Okay.
Yeah. So
all right.
Surprise. That's the.
Okay.
That's
So
the
now, yeah.
reveal.
Okay. So.
Yeah.
So. Okay. So exactly, how did this come about? How did you discover that you had this?
Okay, I will try to tell this story as succinctly as I can.
Okay. No worries, though.
When in 2020, before the pandemic hit in January of 2020, I started getting what I refer to as episodes. And these are episodes that I experienced my whole life. I recall having them as far back as 6. When I was younger, I would have them like about 5 times a year, very infrequently. And I was used to them. I didn't know what they were, didn't know how to explain them. I knew that they were unusual. I knew that other people weren't experiencing what I was because I never heard anyone talk about it. But in no way was I suffering. Like, in no way was I scared. I just, something would happen and I go, oh, that thing happened again. That's weird. La, 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 and then like go on with my life. So then in January, the episodes that I would occasionally experience, like scattered throughout the year, I started having multiple ones a day. That was very different for me. And then it was like 2 times a day to 5 times a day. And I knew something, even for me, like it was off. Something was off. So you're probably wondering, when you say episodes, what do you mean? So this is the part that's very difficult to describe because unless you've experienced it yourself, it's almost impossible to understand because it sounds so outrageous. But essentially, what I found out I have is I have epilepsy, as it turns out, and I have a type of seizure that's called focal aware seizure. Focal meaning focused. It only affects one part of my brain. In my case, my right temporal lobe, which is where my where my tumor is. Aware meaning aware, right? So usually when you think of seizures, most people are familiar with a type of seizure which is now called tonic-clonic, which is a great name. Like, it sounds like some weird drink. But they used to be called grand mal. So you might be familiar with the word grand mal. Like, that's the old language, but they updated all the medical descriptions of things like about 5 years ago.
Just to be more specific?
Yes, yeah. But it gets really confusing because if you talk to an older, like someone who was diagnosed epileptic, like even 7 years ago, their language is completely different from my language. So we're talking to each other and we're like, what do you mean? Because it's just different language. But that's exactly what they did. They updated it to make it more specific and more accurate to what is happening. So when you're having a focal aware seizure, you are aware. So I don't have any outward symptoms that anyone would notice something is wrong with me. I can walk, I can talk, I can think. I don't drift off, I don't fall, I don't shake. I can maintain eye focus. I could literally be having a seizure right now and hiding it from you, and you would
And you would be able to maintain like a conversation?
Yes. And I can keep them separate as well. And the reason I've been able to do that, I think, is just because I was hiding them my whole life. But
just painful, though?
They're not painful. It's very confusing. So the symptoms are as follows. So just imagine, if you will. Okay. So it starts with a warming sensation that starts in my lower abdomen. Not like heartburn. It's a very different sensation. It's a warm, almost glow that starts in my lower abdomen. And it very, very slowly starts to move up my body. While this is happening, imagine you're going up a roller coaster. The majority of the time when I'm having these, I'm standing. So imagine standing, but you feel this rise, like you're going up, 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 you're going up. As that is happening, you feel what I refer to as an intense sensation of dread, not fear. In my case, it's this comprehension that something very, very bad is going to happen, but it never does. And because I've had that so many times, I know not to be scared of it because it's not real. That this deep fear is just, it's dread. It's going to pass. While that's happening, I also get extremely nauseous. But it's a different type of nausea from what I would refer to as like normal person nausea. I can only categorize it as its own unique type of nausea. I've only ever felt that way during a seizure. I sometimes cough, like, and I'll clear my throat a lot, but I've never thrown up, not even close. Like, I won't even gag. It's just like I feel like I need to clear my throat. And then the most mindfucky part of it is, so rising sensation, warm sensation, feeling of dread. The universe kind of presents itself to you in such a way where you have this sudden awareness that everything around you has happened before. So very similar to the concept of déjà vu. And it is medically referred to as a déjà vu or jamais vu, which is the opposite.
Déjà vu is do people really?
Yeah, and
okay.
In this case, it's referred to as a déjà vu, as a medical thing.
All right.
But when I'm not talking about regular person déjà vu, I'm talking about this profound, almost spiritual comprehension where suddenly, like, for lack of, like, imagine like you're going about your business and all of a sudden it goes, and all of a sudden you're looking around and you're like, I've been here before, as 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 I've been here before, it's like this feedback loop where you feel like you're in a dream state, but it's real. But because you're also conscious, and I have that awareness in me, it's a very hard thing to comprehend because your logical side is telling you this is not real. There's no way this is happening. This is impossible. You're not, like, it almost feels like time traveling. It actually, the seizures used to be called psychic seizures once upon a time for that same reason, is because obviously I can't predict the future, nor do I think I can while I'm doing it. It's more that everything that's happening in that moment, you have an acute, deep spiritual awareness that it's happened before. So for example, like, because I have them outside, usually when I'm walking, if a car passes by me and it's a blue car, I'm like, yes, it was a blue car. Like, last time it was a blue car. And just everything that's going around, the baby crying next to you. Yes, that baby was crying. And it's this perpetual, it's very trippy.
Sounds creepy.
It's creepy.
Yeah,
like, it's very hard to explain.
Mindfucky,
yeah, mindfucky. So while this is happening, keep in mind, we're rising.
Yep.
So guess what happens? You drop. You drop.
All right.
So imagine free falling while you're standing.
Yeah.
Which is very hard for people to imagine. And it doesn't make me, like, collapse to my knees. It's this feeling.
And does it go away? Like, is it kind of similar to a roller coaster, or only lasts like that amount of time?
Yes, exactly. So the whole seizure takes about a minute to a minute 30 seconds. And I refer to the glowing, warming heat as an hourglass because I can actually time out how much seizure I have left based on where the heat is radiating in my body. So by the time it gets to almost shoulder length, I know I only have like 10 seconds left. And then the drop will happen when it reaches about here. And then it just comes out of me. Sometimes when I'm done, it can make me a little dizzy, or I need to sit or lean onto something. If I only have one, I'm normally fine. But I started getting in a situation where I was having like 6 in a row. So it was relentless. It was like, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. And so those were the ones where I was like, okay, I gotta sit or I gotta lean on something. So I was getting those in January of 2020. And how I figured out what was happening was, it's really embarrassing, but for as logical as I am, and like, I'm an atheist, but for as logical as I am, I never really thought of it being a medical thing. It was just completely unexplainable. Like, I thought maybe I was like sensing something I wasn't supposed to, or something that wasn't made for me, like parallel universes crossing over for a moment, and I wasn't meant, like, even to the point, it sounds quite dramatic and spooky, but sometimes I thought I was actually feeling someone else die, like it wasn't meant for me, but somehow I had a sense of that. And so when I started getting them more and more and more, one day I was visiting my boyfriend, and I had one crossing his street on my way to his place, and I had been so disturbed because I'd been having so many that day. When I got there, I was like, so does this ever happen to you? Do you ever feel like this? And I knew it was gonna sound batshit.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he just said,
"No,
I haven't." No, yeah. And he was very sweet about it,
right.
But he said, "Have you ever like tried talking to a doctor?" And I started laughing because I was like, what am I supposed to say?
Yeah.
And I literally said, what, deja vu but medical? Oh yeah, like that's buyable. Like, yeah, that's a thing. And so in that moment, I took out my phone, just kind of being a jerk. And I was like, deja vu but medical. And I hit return. Yeah. Took me to an epilepsy website from the UK.
Oh, fuck.
And I was like, uh-oh. And so immediately, again, because I didn't know these types of seizures exist. I didn't know there was a spectrum of seizures. I knew dick about seizures, right? So I thought, no, that's not what epilepsy is. Yeah, and just like not what it is. Like my childhood neighbor friend that I played with had epilepsy. I had seen her have seizures. I was like, this is different. This is not what I have. And so I was like, ridiculous. And then a couple weeks passed, and I was having a bunch of seizures again. And during my break at work, I dared to go back to that website that I found. And they did a very good job of describing the symptoms. And I realized I was reading about myself. And then I started to shake. And then I turned around to my boss and I said, I need to take the rest of the day off work. She said, sure. And then I immediately went to a walk-in clinic. Yeah. And I asked if I could see a neurologist. And he didn't believe me at first. And it wasn't because a lot of doctors are actually not familiar, especially family physicians, don't know what focal aware seizures are. So when I was describing it to him, he was like, oh, maybe you have panic attacks. And I was like, no. I was like, I know what those are. I've never had them in my life. This is like a completely different thing. And I kept saying, you have to understand, I know this sounds bizarre, but I've had these my whole life. And I'm only starting to get concerned now because I'm getting them more. And I don't know what that means. So I was very, very convinced that I had focal aware epilepsy. I deep down knew. And of course, it's not what you want, right? Like Dr. Google. Yeah. You shouldn't, I understand why people encourage you not to do that. You don't want to self-diagnose. You don't want to scare yourself. But I just knew. And then COVID happened. And then I was having seizures at home every day by myself, multiples.
And is your boyfriend able to kind of pick up on signal? Is he able to tell, or is it just kind of
no one can tell?
Are you able to express that it's happening?
Yeah.
And so okay.
Yeah. So when it's happening, I'll usually just say, "Oh, it's happening right now," and especially in the earlier days, my triggers are crossing streets, which is bizarre. That is not a normal trigger. None of the doctors know why. Everyone thinks it's completely fascinating and weird. It is. It's very weird. I don't have the typical triggers that most people do, which is lack of sleep, flashing lights, which you're probably familiar with, certain things. Those do not affect me at all. It's specifically just mind my own business, crossing the street, any street, residential, with lights, without, doesn't matter. It's the act of crossing a street. It's I'll go from the curb and then I'll walk on the road and then instant it happens, and it sucks because I can never know when it's gonna happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So I saw the neurologist finally in July of 2020, and I was very smug. I felt very confident what was wrong with me, and but I was also worried, what if I tell this neurologist this? And it was all through Zoom because it was 2020. It was so weird. And I was thinking, what if he doesn't believe me? So I explained my symptoms, and I told him what I thought I had, and he asked me some questions, and he was like, yeah, actually, very likely you have focal aware epilepsy. And that was the first time I had ever been told I had right temporal lobe epilepsy. Like, I didn't know where or whatever, but that was the first time I heard someone say, it's likely on your right temporal lobe. Based on your symptoms, that's where that happens. So he was like, we're going to do some tests. We're going to give you some MRIs. And I thought, oh, great, I've been vindicated. Like, I was thrilled because I was finally getting answers. And I was also really smug because I was right. So I always want to be right. So I felt great. And then of course, the twist was after I got my MRI back, the reason it was happening was I have a tumor on my right temporal lobe. So I was not expecting that. Like, it never occurred to me. But thankfully, the tumor is benign. But it has caused me brain damage.
Oh, yeah?
Which I think is hilarious.
Why do you think it's hilarious?
Because it's like, I was basically living my whole life like, since I was a kid, right? And so progressively, it likely just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's why my misfires have been happening more and more, is because I went so many years without diagnosis and without medication that my brain essentially is just catching fire in more areas. So like, if I wasn't on meds right now, my guess is I'd probably be having at least 20 a day.
Really?
Yeah, because before I was medicated, I was getting about 10 a day. So it just pops off, right? But I'm very lucky because within the spectrum of seizures, in my opinion, I have the Cadillac of seizures. Like, if you got to pick, man, that's the best seizure to have. Yeah, it's the best seizure. But I'm still very much epileptic, and I'm still very much like, I used to think, like, when I first got diagnosed, I actually was put in touch with oh my goodness. Let's see, this is actually, this is one of my symptoms happening right now. I have verbal trouble sometimes where words escape me. It's called tip of the tongue syndrome, and it's actually happening right now.
That's all right. I'm still stuck on the Cadillac of seizures. I'm like, what? That's
social worker. There we go. That's okay. So I was put in touch with a epilepsy social worker, and I was trying to kind of play down that, like, I was like, well, you know, compared to others, I'm so lucky. And she's like, no. She's like, it's just as valid. Because I was, like, really like, no, but I'm lucky. And she was basically trying to, like, let me know that, like, this was still very significant. Yeah. And also it could change. So, like, there was a good chance that had I not been medicated, as those misfires continued and started to build in other areas of my brain, I probably very soon, in my opinion, would have started having tonic-clonic seizures, because my brain was just, you know, the description that my neurologist gave me, which I think is a really good visual, is he said, like, if you imagine your brain circuitry is like a row of sticks, and then you know, one stick's on fire, and then you light a couple sticks at the front, so those are the misfires there. But then without medication, what might happen is one of those sticks with the fire will get thrown further down the line, and then that will catch on fire, and then so on and so on and so on. And so I was at that point where things were getting a little, you know, messy. So I'm very lucky that I was caught before then, and I do consider myself extremely fortunate in that regard. My meds suck. I hate them very much, but they do work. But I'm not the same person I was.
Side effects.
So many side effects. Oh, yeah. I hate them so much. I hate them. I was actually, up until 10 weeks ago, I did a lot of stuff to be a candidate for brain surgery. And I was so pro-surgery. Like,
You were?
Oh, yeah. Like,
is it growing, or is it kind of...
No, so far it's not, which is great. It likely won't, because it hasn't changed through all the MRIs, which is wonderful. But I was wanting surgery because that would mean less medication, because I'm on a really heavy dose, like more than the average person. Like, there was one time I went to the hospital for something else, and the nurse asked me how much I took, and I told her, and she kind of paused, and she goes, no, that can't be right. And I was like, no, that's right. And she was like, grams, not milligrams. And I was like, yep. And she said, well, why so much? And I said, I don't know, because I have so many seizures. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's a lot.
I don't want to take it.
Yeah, I hate it, right? Yeah, so that's been a journey, but I like to joke about it a lot. And I mean, there were periods, and I mean, this is stuff I don't say in my comedy, but like at the earlier stages before we understood everything, it did get a little dark. Like they thought I had patches missing from my skull at the time. That could have potentially been like bone marrow related cancers and that sort of thing. But long story short, they made a mistake. But it took months to figure that out. Good. So like the first couple months were they were quite dark. Yeah. But then once I was in the clear, but then when I was on the clear of that, like I was like, okay, it's fine. Like I can deal with the rest. It's fine. But yeah, the brain damage thing I think is really funny. I really do. Like it's like a carte blanche, right? Because it's like whatever I do that's stupid, I can just say like, hey, brain damage. Like, oh, it's not my fault. Yeah. And of course it's still my fault. Aside from the times it really genuinely isn't my fault. But yeah, I've had brain mapping done. I was in a hospital for 16 days so they could map out my brain to see if I could get surgery. And then I was a candidate. I'm giving you like the Coles Notes version. But
no, that's cool.
But basically what happened was I was so pro-surgery, and then I had a meeting with my surgeon who I was very excited to speak to because I'd been waiting years. Like it took 2 years to get to that point of just patience and waiting and doing all these tests. And then it turned out he wanted to remove a lot more of my brain than I was comfortable with. Like in my head, I thought they were going to like, you know, whatever the size of the tumor was, I was like, they'll take that out and then they'll like move some tissue away from that and that will be it. But he wanted to take away my entire hippocampus, which regulates emotion on both sides of my hemispheres, as well as the majority of my right temporal lobe, which is where my tumor was. And I was shocked. Like, I was like, I'm not okay with it.
Why so much?
Because it's all damaged. So basically...
Oh, from like the misfires?
From seizures, yeah, exactly. So like his goal was, you know, as a surgeon, their goal is to give you a seizure-free life. And if you're having seizures that really affect your life in a tremendous way, right? Like you can't work, which I can. You can't drive, which I could if I knew how to drive, right? I don't have those things taken away from me. So for some people, that might be worth it. And to risk it, like roll the dice and just see what else happens and what other problems you might have in the future. But for someone like me, I was like, well, it's the devil you know, the drugs, versus the devil you don't know. And that devil freaked me out. Like,
there's definitely no right way to approach something like this.
Yeah, it's very personal.
All, right.
Exactly. It's very personal. And like even the doctor ended up saying to me that like based on our conversation, he was like, I don't know if this is like what you want, right? And I was like, I don't think it is either, right? But it was such a letdown because it was like years of me waiting and I was so excited and I was making so many like surgery jokes. Like that was like a big part of my set for a while, like anticipating brain surgery and making like neurologist jokes and surgeon jokes. And then like none of it was valid anymore. So now I have another set about ripping up parts of my brain. So I just moved on. Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, it's a pretty batshit crazy story, but I just want people to be aware.
You're doing well and you're
Thank
here.
You.
And I mean, these kind of situations can be so much worse. So you gotta be thankful.
No, very like incredibly grateful. And it's like I said, Cadillac of seizures. Like I have.
It's hilarious.
Thank you.
Oh my god. Actually, it's funny you mentioned the driving because I was gonna ask. I saw you post something, and I'm like, I'm G1. This is second time I got my G1, and like for sure we're gonna have a car in like 2-3 months. But I saw you post something on Facebook, and it was like talking about that, and it's like I'm never gonna drive like it's supposed to be, or something along those lines.
Oh yeah, like as nature intended.
Yeah, did something happen, or you just failed the test one time and are like I'm never doing this again?
Well, a couple things. So I grew up in Toronto. Neither of my parents drive. I grew up in a car-free households. I actually know more about driving cars than both my parents, which is shocking. Like, they just never learned. And so I totally skipped.
It's pretty easy, though, when you're living in Toronto.
Yeah, like, you just don't need it, right? And so, I mean, of course, sometimes I was, like, jealous that my friends' parents had cars and could, like, take them to African Lion Safari. For sure, and, like, places that were harder to get to, like Wonderland or whatever. So then I tried getting my license the first time when I was in my 20s. Had very bad experiences, which I won't get into, and I didn't kill anybody, don't worry. But I quit, and then I tried again in my mid-30s, like almost 10 years later. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it this time. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm really gonna do it. And I took young drivers, which was very humbling at my age because, like, I was the oldest one there. And the written portion was fine. Like, all the young drivers' written tests, fine. But when it came to the actual driving, I was just so nervous. And I had a really not great instructor. And then I had a lovely friend who took me out. Like, he was so generous with his time and he trusted me with his car. And he tried his darndest and was so patient. He was actually a better teacher than the teacher because the teacher at Young Drivers treated me like he never gave me comments, like positive reinforcement. Like, he'd only tell me what I was doing wrong. Whereas my friend would be like, that was really great when you did whatever, and try to focus on this next time. So I realized I needed that, like, positive feedback as well. So after I went through all that, I basically barely passed Young Drivers with the skin on my teeth. Like, just getting their certificate. Not even G2. We're just talking, like, Young Drivers. I, like, just got it. And then I was like, and I'm done. Like, I was like, I'm never doing this again. There was one time, too. This is a funny story. Are you familiar with Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Yes.
At all?
Yes.
Okay. You seem like the type, like me, right? Do you know that scene where Pee-wee knocks over all the motorcycles?
Oh, yeah.
Which makes him do the tequila dance as forgiveness. I had a very similar situation where my friend at the time lived in a house that was really close to a Hells Angels clubhouse. And there was one time where he wanted me to drive into his back alley and park the car in the actual garage, which is something he would always do. And there were also a bunch of Harleys lined up in the alley. And the one time he asked me to do it, all the Harleys were there and a bunch of the Hells Angels were smoking and drinking outside in the alley. So imagine me very slowly, like barely driving, shaking, and my friend's like, Nikki, don't pee-wee. It's a life or death situation. Yeah, he's like, don't pee-wee it, Nikki. Nikki, don't pee-wee it, don't pee-wee it. And I was like laughing and like terrified at the same time. But I was just like, Chris, what are we gonna do? I was like, if I hit, like, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, it's okay. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He's like, just listen to me. It's not going to happen. So imagine me going like 1 mile an hour, like snail's pace. And they're just like watching me with their beers going.
Yeah, just closely. Like, they know that you're scared.
Oh, yeah. It was embarrassing. It was so embarrassing. Thankfully, no motorcycles were harmed and neither were us.
Oh, that's good.
Neither were us, but... Yeah, that's an example of how bad my driving is. Yeah.
All right.
So I encourage you to do it, though. It's a great skill. It's just something that I feel I'm not meant to do. That's
fair. And honestly, up until Aaliyah, I had been like, I don't need it, you know? And like, things were getting a little inconvenient, but I've always been able to like working like reffing shows or stand-up shows like out of the city. I've always been pretty... I'm sure it'll open a few more doors, but I usually can get rides when I need to and stuff, so she's really the only reason. I just don't want to be taking the bus. Like, one of the most annoying, even still, is just like a crying baby on the bus. Even though I have a daughter at home who cries, and it's just like... And maybe it's just when I take the bus, because it's like to work and from work, and like in the morning I'm tired, and then coming home from work I'm even more tired from work, and it's... I don't know. But I just don't want to bring her on the bus.
No, it makes sense, and it's like I said, like I encourage everyone to do it. Like I think it's a great life skill, like a true.
Does your
life
boyfriend
skill.
drive?
He does. Thank God.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Thank God he drives, and he's a very good driver.
African Lion Safari.
Yeah, he's never taken me there.
Does that still exist?
I don't think so. Actually, I kind of hope not. Like when I was a kid. It seems so exciting and shiny.
All those places, SeaWorld, Marineland.
And you didn't realize, or at least I didn't realize when I was that young, what was actually happening behind the scenes.
I know,
I hope none of those places exist anymore. But when I was a kid, they had the African Lion Safari commercials, and it just seemed so exciting.
Yeah, it was great. I remember that jingle.
But I hope they actually don't exist anymore.
Yeah, no, but like as a kid, I loved like the idea. I'd never been. And I heard there was a lot of, like, it's risky business having a place like that, dealing with, like, the liability. Just, like, people... Because people are dumb. Factors. People are dumb, man. And, like, I've seen just people getting attacked, getting out of their cars, or just, like, animals coming inside. Like, it makes me nervous just thinking about it, you know? But, yeah, like, zoos. I'm always so torn with, like, zoos, or even, like, the Ripley's Aquarium. I'm, I would go to the aquarium, and now I'm like, oh, I got a daughter. We're going to go to all these fucking places. But I saw, like, the thing from Marineland, and I don't understand how that is still going on. How?
Yeah, no, Marineland is, like, the worst out of anything you can support. Like, that's definitely, like, a hard line for me, Marineland.
Did you ever go as a kid, though?
I went once.
I did, too, yeah.
I don't really recall how we even got there. Through friends, I guess, like because I remember my mom was there. I remember that. I think maybe even my grandmother was there, but we clearly didn't get there on our own. Like somehow we went with others, and I remember my mother not having a good time. Of like these very vague memories, and maybe it was because she understands. Knew. Yeah, it was because she understood what was happening. But I was just too young to like get it. But that was it. And I did end up going to African Lion Safari once with a school friend.
Okay.
And I remember being very disappointed. Like I think I was in grade 3.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Why were you disappointed?
The animals weren't happy. Right? Like just what I thought it was gonna be was not what it was, and like all the animals just look sad and shabby. And I remember there not being like a lot of shelter, obviously, because they're trying to keep them out, right, for the people. So it's not like they
can't see them if there's a lot of shrubbery.
Yeah, they didn't have like a lot of like hidey places that I can recall, and it just wasn't, like the thrilling commercial. Like it definitely wasn't that. But my memories of it are so vague. Like, I was young. Like, I was, like, I don't know, grade 3 or something. Yeah. So, yeah. What a bummer.
Okay, all right. We're going to get out of that. Let's do top 5. You want to get into top 5?
Okay, let's see if I can remember. Let's
okay.
Try.
Oh, you didn't write them down? No,
I wrote down some of them on my phone. So let's see what I can recall off the top of my head.
All right. Let's start with David Bowie songs.
My favorite. I love David Bowie. Okay, so this was... You did ask me ahead of time to, like, think of something. Yeah. And this was actually really hard for me to do because it's, like, choosing between kids. So the only thing I can say right now is this is how I feel recently.
Okay.
This can change literally by tomorrow. It's really kind of what I'm in the mood for at the time. So I actually looked up my top 5 songs that I'm currently listening to the most on Spotify that are David Bowie songs. So I was very specific. So I will look, but it feels wrong. Like even just seeing this, it's just like it hurts my heart. Okay, so the first one is 5 Years. I don't know if you're familiar with that song, but it's from the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, which is probably an album you are familiar with.
I do know the album.
Yeah, it has Ziggy Stardust.
I have at least one song from that album on my list.
Probably Ziggy Stardust.
No.
The song. No? Soul Love, maybe?
We'll go through it.
Okay. So 5 years.
But it wasn't as hard for me, I'll say. I do like him, but it's
I know his entire catalog, and I'm a hardcore fan, so it's like very hard for me to make a choice. And by the way, this isn't in no particular order. Like this is just the 5.
That's fair.
5 Years. Second one is Time, which is on the Aladdin Sane album, which is the most famous cover. That's the cover that everyone identifies as Ziggy Stardust character, and I'm like, no, that's Aladdin Sane. They're different characters, but Time. Black Star, which was his last single second last single from his last album before he passed away. So that song is like an opus. It's like 10 minutes long. It has experimental jazz. Like it's so trippy and so beautiful. And when he released the Black Star album, he was dying. And it was a secret. Like, apparently very few of his colleagues even knew he was dying. And when it first came out, of course, because I got it right away. Like, the second it came out, I listened. And I thought, oh, wow, what an introspective album. Like, he's older and he's thinking about his mortality. Like, wow, like what? But it turns out it was much deeper than that. Yeah. And so it's a beautiful, the song goes everywhere. Like, it changes so much, and lyrically I think it's brilliant. The video makes me cry. Like, I cannot watch the video without crying, and I just think it was such an epic way for him to leave. One of the lyrics from it is something happened on the day he died, spirit rose a meter and stepped aside. Like, I can't. I can't. So this I will say is my all-time favorite David Bowie song. The next one, Life on Mars.
Okay.
From Hunky Dory.
Okay.
Most people know that one.
It didn't make the cut, but I do like that song. I do like that song.
It's the one that I can listen to just continue. It's a single, right? But it's like I can listen to it continuously, and it takes me back right away to being a teenager when I've heard it for the first time when I think I was 13. It just puts me right back in that state of being 13 and hearing it for the first time and just being completely blown away.
Yeah,
so
I love
it's
that.
Very nostalgic. And the last one is Teenage Wildlife from Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, which is an album from the 80s.
All right.
Do you know any of those songs?
I have none of those songs. None of those songs are on my... I probably have, like, the more, like, mainstream. You got, like, some B-sides and stuff like mine.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, I mean, the Main Street stuff is great. I mean, most people, at least they know, like, Let's Dance, maybe.
Yeah. That's on my list.
Yeah, I can probably guess what's on your list. Based on, like, popularity.
This might be a cover. I don't know if he was the original Moon Age Daydream. Was he the original?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
a good one.
That's my number one.
Oh, really? Okay, that's good. That's good.
And then I'm going Let's Dance. Yep. That's my number
Classic.
2. It's fun.
Yep, fun.
Space Oddity.
Okay. Very also extremely classic and really set him up for the rest of his career. Yeah.
I'm getting the approval from everyone so far, so I feel good. Heroes?
Beautiful song.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Right.
That sometimes makes it to my top rotation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Starman.
Okay.
That's my last one.
Also from Rise and Fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it's nice to know. I wasn't sure if Moon Age Daydream was a cover, because I've heard quite a few versions of that song. But I'm more familiar with his version, so...
Because now that you're saying that to me in the back of my head, I'm like, oh my God, am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Well, that's not a big deal anyway.
Am I completely humiliating myself as a Bowie fan?
Yeah, right?
No, because I'm like one of those people that, you know, when you meet other really, like, heavy-duty Bowie fans, like, you really go in the weeds. Like, you go hard in the weeds.
Yeah.
And the idea that I just, like, humiliated myself, it's
Someone's gonna watch this and be like, she's an
I'm
idiot.
Sorry, Neil. Specifically, Neil, if you watch this, please go easy on me. All right.
Well, you could be right. Maybe you're not wrong.
I don't know. I mean, I'm willing to be wrong, of course, but we'll see. Yes.
Yeah.
But I approve. Those are good choices.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you know what? There are no bad choices because it's David Bowie.
All right.
Unless you picked from like one specific album. But aside from that,
what's the worst album?
Oh my God. There's a couple. There was an album he did in like the late 80s, which is basically just a bunch of terrible covers.
Okay.
It was around the time he did Dancing in the Streets with Mick Jagger. It's funny, I can't even remember the name of it. I have so little respect for that album. But it's terrible. It's garbage.
Well, I don't know it, so we're good. Do you want to do superhero? Let's get superheroes out of the way. I'm curious who you pick. I'll do mine first because I do them like this is like the one question that I ask.
This is like the one thing you always ask?
Every guest because it's like I'm a little bit of a nerd. Yeah. But like I said, it doesn't have to even be, I've had people not like just say like athletes and family members and shit. It doesn't have to be. Mine are, if I was going to say like honorable mention to a real person, it would probably be my Nana, for sure.
Oh, I love that.
But number one for me, Batman. Then I'm going the Ninja Turtles.
Oh, okay. All four, or do you have a preference?
All four, but... Well,
do you have a descending order of preference?
Like, the stuff... Like, they're never really apart. There's no, like, solo stories from these Ninja Turtles.
True,
you know?
but
in
terms of, like, character traits...
I prefer Raphael.
You're Raphael guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm going Red Hood.
Okay. Don't know what that is. I'm not going to pretend I do.
He's like... he was a sidekick to Bat. He was a Robin before, and then he left and became, like, his own superhero. Yeah. And that's kind of similar to Arsenal, who's my 4. He was, like, Green Arrow's sidekick, and then he became his own kind of thing, but he's really, like, techie and shit. And then Spider-Man.
Okay. Well, I knew some of those, so that's good. My boyfriend's also, like, a hardcore comic book nerd.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like, sometimes I'll, like, just have a random question about, like, anything, like, whether it's, like, a graphic novel or, like, he'll get back to me instantly. Like, he just knows right away, and he'll be like, oh, yeah, I have that book if you want to borrow it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So,
do you ever?
Sometimes I do. Mostly if I borrow from him, it's the graphic novels, mostly, that I'm...
Watchmen?
I've never read it, but it's actually something I would like. Yes, he does. Yeah, my favorite graphic novel, for as like dark as it is I Love Mouse.
Okay.
Yeah, Mouse is like, it's heavy shit. But I love Mouse, and I also love one by an independent artist. There's a part 1 and a part 2, and the first one's called The Motherless Oven. And the second one's called The Can Opener's Daughter.
Okay.
And I love them. And it's so funny because, of course, in this moment, I cannot remember that man's name. But he's a local, like, Toronto guy. And
I'll look it up.
Yeah. No, I love it so much. I really want it turned into movies. Like, it's very much my vibe. It's a really strange world that he's created. But to answer your questions.
Yes.
All right. So... like, the diplomatic answer when I think of real people is I think of, like, heroes as, like, nurses and, like, doctors during the pandemic. Like, workers, like, people that were, you know, necessary workers over the pandemic, whether they were, like, grocery store employees or, you know, people delivering food. I think that was such an awful time, and it already feels in some ways like it was yesterday, but also 10 years ago. And I think so many medical people and, like, essential employees really suffered during that period in, like, profound ways that probably some of them, I mean, I hope they do, but there's probably a whole bunch of traumas that, you know, people have experienced, and it'll take a lifetime to get over. So I have a lot of respect. I mean, especially, like, for me, even, like, I was in the medical system during that period. Yeah. I also... hilariously had an unrelated, very serious lung injury in 2021 that had nothing to do with COVID, ironically. It was an poison inhalation injury that came from sculpting. That's like a whole other story. Yeah, but I mean, just the way everyone took care of me then. And because I was, like, in that, you know, that ward during COVID, right? Like, in the thicket of it, like 2021. And just, like, observing what was going on around me when I was conscious it was really extreme. So people who, like, give of themselves in that way are definitely people I admire. Firefighters as well. Huge props for firefighters as well. So that's, like, on the more kind of, like, people kind of general thing.
Yeah.
Catwoman. Absolutely. Like, I've always, but specifically... the Selena Kyle Catwoman by Michelle Pfeiffer from Batman Returns.
Yes.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Like, she is my Catwoman. So Tim Burton's design of Catwoman is my Catwoman. You know, Lady Gets Pushed Out a Window by Christopher Walken Catwoman is my Catwoman.
Yeah,
so the sexiness of it and the slitheriness of it and the unhingedness of it. I'm not really familiar with, like, I know they've changed Catwoman's character many, many times, and I did see the most recent Batman, but, like, that Selena Kyle is always going to be, like, my Catwoman, my Selena Kyle. Batman as well, absolutely. The Gotham world in general, I think I'm more drawn to, just because it's a little darker. I like that there's not necessarily a magic element in that case. Like, it's not that somebody was born with powers. They're just kind of regular people with zany things, having crazy ideas. You know, it's less about something they're born with that's magical and more about like agendas and, you know, using tools and cunning. And so that appeals to me a lot more than like the spiritual stuff does, I guess.
No, like 3 of my 5 superheroes are humans. I enjoy reading about, I feel like humans just have more, they're more badass, you know? And they have more to risk, they have more to lose. It's just, they're generally just more interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, as much as I would love to wake up with like a supernatural ability, I mean, fuck, like even with my seizures, I wish people could like experience it just once, because in that moment, you do feel like you have something. Like you do feel like you have a power, but it's like, it's not tangible. It's not something you can show somebody. It's not something you can prove to somebody. It's like people just have to take it at face value, you know, that this is happening and believe it. Apparently too, like, I've read that people like Lewis Carroll, for example, who wrote Alice in Wonderland, they believe that he was having focal aware seizures, and that a lot of his influence, like, you know, for example, when Alice, like, things grow or things become small and those sort of perceptions, that's another type of focal seizure you can have where it affects your visual senses. And it's not just about drugs. Like, there's an actual other component to it. Some people also get auditory hallucinations. I do not. Like, I just have the most basic ass, like, one you could get. So, yeah, sometimes I wish I could, like, translate that. Honestly, like, off the top of my head, like, those are, like, the ones that I think are, like, the coolest. And I love, like,
I dig it.
Yeah, like, the Can Opener series, the Motherless Oven series. Yeah, I wouldn't say they're necessarily heroes, but I love the lore of the story. It takes place in a world where children are born to appliances, and everyone knows exactly when they're going to die. So everyone has a death date, and it's just part of the society. And it rains knives. So there's knife o'clock. And there's other appliances in the house that are considered gods. And I will leave it there for you, and you can read the rest. Would you want to know
when you would die?
Absolutely fucking not.
No?
Absolutely not. No. No. Because, so many reasons why no.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I can kind of understand how someone might want to know, but what if it's, like, literally, like, in 2 minutes? Right? Like,
fuck.
You're fucked. Like, why did you bother? Yeah, and then you're just going to fret about it for the next 2 minutes when you could have been enjoying your water. You know? So, yeah, I don't think how about you wouldn't either?
No, not at all.
No, absolutely not.
I think it would stop me from living like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm sorry I kind of boffed it on the superhero questions.
No, you didn't.
And I mean, and I love of course I love my parents. Like, I'm very grateful. Like, I have wonderful parents. I'm very lucky. I have a very good relationship with both my parents. Like, I joke that, like, I don't have, like, that trope of most comedians where it's like, you know, like, I had a bad childhood.
Even your story, you're getting into comedy. It's like, that's nice.
Yeah, it's
refreshing, though. That's good. I like it.
Well, I'm glad you think so, but I definitely, like, don't have that edginess.
You know, someone like, look at her.
Yeah.
Whatever, fuck it. You're awesome. Comedians, let's do that.
Ooh, okay. So this is another one that changes a lot because it depends on kind of like what I'm interested in. One thing that I realized when I started kind of compiling this in my head for you was I don't like the female comedians I like the most are my friends.
Really?
Like, they're not necessarily like famous comedians. Like, I think what my girls are doing is way funnier than like what I'm seeing by others right now. So I guess that's a good thing in the sense that, like, I just want others to see them as well, right? So it's more about, like, can we get them out there so that more people can see what makes them so amazing and the points of view they have. But in terms of, like comedians that are well-known, mine tend to be kind of more on the less edgy side. I guess. So I love Dimitri Martin.
Oh, Dimitri Martin is great.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch his show too?
Yeah, and I've seen him live too.
Oh my god.
So I love Dimitri Martin.
Okay, hold on. Just because you've seen the show, like a lot of people think. Okay,
it's a strange show.
The one where he has H. John Benjamin, and they're fighting over a parking space, and it like freezes and is like totally does yoga, and then like he's going to open his trunk, doesn't have anything. It's just like writing all this stuff, and like they're the least intimidating guys ever arguing.
Yeah, this is what I mean about the lack of edginess that I'm talking about, right?
So funny.
So I love. I'm glad you know who he is because some people don't know who he is.
Person is great too. That special person.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. And when I saw him live, I was like in tears the whole time. It was so. He hasn't been in Toronto in a really long time, but I actually wrote to him once. He wrote back to me because I was like, "You haven't come to Toronto in ages," and he's like, "I know, I'm really sorry. He's like, I'm very aware of it. We're trying to figure it out." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "We care up here too." So I was like, "Oh, he wrote to me. How cool."
Yeah.
So Dimitri Martin, I love the ridiculousness of Jim Gaffigan.
Okay.
I love where he's going because he's not just like gentle Jim Gaffigan anymore. Jim Gaffigan's getting angry now, and Jim Gaffigan's swearing now, and he never used to do that, but he's become more political the past couple years. Like, it's not just about Hot Pockets anymore. And as much as I love his Hot Pockets bit, which will forever be funny to me, I don't know if you've ever heard it, but
I think I have, yeah.
It's so ridiculous, but I really like where he's going currently. And I'm excited to see like where it continues to go. Bill Hader, even though I know he isn't necessarily like a stand-up comedian per se.
That's all right.
I love Bill Hader. Like, he can do no wrong. I love his writing. When he did Documentary Now, I was in tears.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh, you gotta see Documentary Now. Oh my god, it's so good. Especially if you're familiar with the documentaries they're parodying.
I do a lot of documentaries.
So clever. It's so clever. Like, have you seen Grey Gardens?
No.
Ever? Oh, no. Shit. Okay. Even if you
haven't...
Grey Gardens?
No.
Yeah. Even if you haven't seen it, it's funny on its own. So I love Documentary Now. I loved Barry. I haven't
checked that out yet.
Oh, I won't say anything. I don't want to ruin it for you or anybody else. But Barry went places I really didn't ever think that it could go, like, even just as a concept. I was blown away, and that last season was so completely different.
What was it, 3 seasons?
3 or 4.
Okay.
It might be 4. It could be 4. I was amazed at Barry. Anything he does, I think, is funny. And he was in the most recent. He was in Beau is Afraid. A lot of people don't know that. Like, and I love Beau is Afraid. And he plays a UPS person, and he's just in it for a little bit. It's like a little cameo.
He has quite a few things where he's
he just like comes and goes. Yeah. But I wasn't expecting him in like such a serious, like, dark, anxiety but funny provoking film as Beau is Afraid. And I remember when I was seeing it with my boyfriend, I turned and I was like, "Is that Bill Hader?" He's like, "Shh," because I was so excited to see Bill. So Bill Hader in general.
Yeah.
I do love Kristen Wiig as an actor for the same reason. Like, I'm not as familiar with what she might be writing. I don't know if she is writing right now, but I love her characterizations. I think she's one of the funniest SNL actors of all time.
For sure.
Gilda Radner too, from like way back. She's from the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, she was her story is really beautiful and sad. Like, she was one of the original SNL actors when it first came out, and she was very beloved, very talented. If you can somehow, I don't even know if there's stuff on YouTube. I had like a VHS bootleg tape that had video of her from when I was a kid. That's how I started like originally loving her. But she was like this really, really petite, tiny, willowy lady. And then she got really sick, and she died of cancer. And like, apparently, like, obviously everyone, like all the SNL people were just devastated. But I heard this like really sweet, I don't know if it was Bill Murray who originally told the story, but he talked about a day where like all the comedians were at a party, and she was very sick and she was very frail. And like, I guess people knew like, okay, like, we're not gonna have her for much longer. but apparently someone had the idea where everyone just started picking her up because she was so tiny and like passing her to the next person. And like it was just like this beautiful happy memory for everybody where like she was crying and I'd be like, okay, Gilda, you're going to Bill now. And they were just like, you know, crowd surfing her around the apartment. And I just think that's so touching. So I love her. So I guess I do like some funeral remembers. It's so bad. My friends are funny. I like my friends. And of course, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Name is blanking from me. Best one-liner guy of all time. Died of an overdose.
Mitch Hedberg.
Thank you. Mitch Hedberg, yeah. I love.
I know, well. So good. I would say, I would say him or Rodney Dangerfield, but I always think him because he was just closer to my generation. Like we're closer to age in age, and Rodney Dangerfield was like a different generation. Yeah, but I found him really funny as well.
His delivery was really special, and his joke writing was just so clever.
Yeah, right. It really was, yeah.
And I'm so embarrassed, of course, I couldn't remember his name, but that's my brain. It happens sometimes. I have, like, really good days, and some days I'm fucking useless. Like, there's some days I can barely talk.
Yeah.
Because everything's like, My favorite story of, like, all the words I got wrong, so much like what I did with you, right, was I can think of words that might help you prompt what I'm trying to think of, right? So I said one-liners and, like, overdose, and that helped you remember. So there was one time I said to a friend that I was looking for the masks for my hands. Gloves.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite, like, dumb one of all time. But,
all right.
Yeah, it's like charades.
That's all right. Masks for the hands.
Masks for your hands.
I dig it. It makes total sense.
It makes sense, though, right? Like, you just work with what you have in that moment.
I'll go through mine quick. Joe, I've done them quite a few times on here. I generally ask him to use this, yeah. But Joe Rogan is my guy.
Okay.
I really like him. I'm going Dave Chappelle.
Okay, yeah.
And then I like Mark Forward, who is a comedian from Oakville. Have you seen Letterkenny or Mr. D?
I've seen Letterkenny, but like only like a couple of
Okay,
episodes.
he is the hockey coach in Letterkenny.
Okay.
But just like, I think he's like one of the best in Canada, and I think he's not, I wouldn't consider him a local guy anymore because like he writes like, you know, for Letterkenny, he was on another big show and stuff like that, but Canadian legend, Mark Forward, check him out. He's from Oakville, and I've seen him live probably more than any other comedian that I've seen. I've probably seen him live like 15 times in my life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's so great. And last time we saw him was maybe not last Christmas, the Christmas before, and like, you've been to Comedy Bar. He did like the main room at Comedy Bar, and like the time is over, and he knows, and he went on for like an extra half hour, like on the last show, and it was. Yeah, so if you ever go see him and he's at Comedy Bar, make sure you go to like the last show because he will make it. Yeah, he'll make it worth it.
Extended play.
And he has a special on fucking Crave.
Good for him.
I think it's Mark Forward wins all the awards. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
That actually sounds really familiar. Like once you said that, it kind of jogged something in my memory. Maybe I've like seen it flipping.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Check it out. And then I'm going George Carlin.
One of the original 5. Yes, very respectable choice. Like, he's one of the OGs.
He is, and he was like the conductor for Thomas the Tank Engine, and so it was like that was like, oh wait, he's swearing, you know, it was crazy. And then, of course
Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted.
Yeah, George Carlin was in Bill and Ted.
I'm not like. I've seen, I think, the first one, but I'm not like
Rufus.
Super. Those aren't like.
Oh my gosh, you should, if you're a fan of his, you should watch it just for him. He's one of the main characters.
All right.
Yeah, he's the guy from the future that helps Bill and Ted navigate the past.
Okay.
Yeah, he comes and goes. He's in both films.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe I will. And then Bill Burr. I'm going to go Bill Burr.
Bill Burr?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think one of my favorite specials right now And I kind of like put stuff on at work sometimes and just leave it like
playing. Like playing.
And like I think one that is creeping up there now is Theo Von. He's like one of my newer favorites.
I don't know him.
You don't know Theo Von? Okay,
no. I'm not gonna pretend
like kind of like
that'll get me in trouble.
Pretty boy like country. He has a mullet. Says bruh a lot.
No,
and stuff. Anyways,
I don't know him. I know, but I should check that out. And I do like there's like I love John Mulaney, but I feel like that's kind of like it's like the most white bread answer, right? Where it's like he's very popular. Like a lot of people like John Mulaney, but I do really like John Mulaney as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Big Mouth. You a Big Mouth fan?
No, I didn't.
No. Okay.
I actually didn't like it very much. Like I watched all the seasons. Like I still watched them, but I found like as it continued on, I got less and less interested.
I fell off.
Like in what was happening, and it was just like a bunch of gross out jokes, and I was like, okay, what else?
Yeah, we've been here.
Like, we've seen this, right? And then I also wondered, like, it's obviously good that they did this, but because the kids were growing, I was like, at what point are they going to stop this show, right? Like, what's the cutoff point for these children?
Yeah.
Because it's like, they're learning about masturbating and all this stuff, but like, we're not going to see the kids fuck, are we? Like, I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to see that. Thankfully, they ended all that before. They, like, closed it up, and then they made that...
There's, like, a spin-off now. I can't remember what it's called.
It's not good. I didn't like that either.
I haven't checked it out.
I can't remember what it's called. It's, like... It's not called HR. It's, like, something, like, office-y sounding like that. Yeah.
It's okay. It won't be as good. Flavors of ice cream. You know what? Mm-hmm. Let's do Bill Hader movies and shows, because we were kind of talking about comedians. Yeah. And then we'll end with flavors of ice cream.
Okay. So obviously like SNL, obviously. Yeah. And like
is that your number one? That's my number one.
For Bill? Yeah, absolutely. It's my number one. And of course, like, there's a lot of iconic characters. Stefan, obviously, like you have to say Stefan. But one of the things that like I love about Bill the most as an SNL actor, which actually is not necessarily considered a good thing, is his breaking. He broke all the time. He was like famous for breaking, and I think it's so funny when he breaks because he's already funny, and then when he just has that crack, like that little bit of a crack where he falls apart.
Yeah. I always enjoy that. I think those are like super, like Chris Farley has a lot of those moments from back in the day where he's like killing David Spade. There's one specifically where like Christina Applegate is there, and they're both dying on the couch, and I just think it speaks to how funny those people are, you know?
Yes, and I love it, and like I know that specifically with the Stefan character, John Mulaney, who wrote at the time, he used to fuck him up by adding a couple extra lines last minute. So sometimes when Bill was reading the teleprompter, that was literally the first time he had ever read that joke before. And it was done purposely to like break him up, right? And I've also heard Bill say that with Stefan, when he started doing this, like making it part of his character, he did it because he was trying to hide the smile or like the crack or whatever. Anything Bill Hader, like his voice work is great. Like he's been in so many movies and different characters. Like
I know he does a lot of stuff on South Park as well.
Yeah, he writes for South Park. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. He did the voice for. One that's like more dramatic that I really like, and oddly it was with Kristen Wiig, is Skeleton Twins. If you've ever seen that movie,
seen it.
It's not a comedy per se. It has moments of humor for sure, but it's just like a sweet story about two siblings, twins, and fraternal twins, and they're kind of estranged, and they have to come back together. And it's just like this very sweet, tender story. Like it's very simple. Like there's not a lot to it, but I love his portrayal in that movie. And he's like a very depressed person, and it's not usually what you're used to seeing from a Bill character. Obviously Barry. I haven't
seen it, so.
you're gonna love it. I honestly think you are gonna I feel very confident saying that you're gonna love Barry.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily say
it
that
is
for
on
everybody.
my list. It is on my list.
I get a vibe that you're gonna like
It's on
Barry.
Crave, right? Is it on Crave?
Yes. Yeah. So Barry is probably aside from SNL, that's probably my number one. Okay. But then the thing is, he's done a lot of cameos in movies that I don't really like the movies, but I like the cameos. Yeah. There was a lot of comedies from 12 years ago. We had bits and pieces. I like those parts. I can't really say I like the films per se.
Okay, I probably have a couple of those on my list.
Yeah, I said it probably yours. So
you're done?
Yeah.
Everything Bill Hader. Though. I'm gonna check out Skeleton Twins.
Yeah.
And I like when they do that. I like when comedic actors do serious roles. Jim Carrey has a few. Adam Sandler has a few. I'm a big Jason Segel guy, and Hidden Ed. Is it Ed Holmes? Ed something. He's from Hangover. Ed, the guy who misses a tooth. What's his name? Ed Harris. Ed something.
Not Ed Harris.
It's Ed something. Ed Harris is the old guy.
Yeah, no, I know who you're talking about.
Anyways, him and Jason Segel are in this movie called Jeff Who Lives at Home. And it doesn't really have, it's not a traditional, story. It's just kind of a day in the lives of these people. And, it's not funny, even though it has Segel and that Ed guy in it. Susan Sarandon's in it.
Oh, wow, I remember.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Jeff Who Lives at Home?
Yeah. Susan Sarandon's, old. She's Jason Segel's mom, and I think she's just becoming, she's just discovering that she's, into women. And, oh, man, there's so many...
Good movies.
It's a really that's a movie you should check out if I was going to recommend anything.
And Documentary Now. I already mentioned it for Bill Hader, but
yeah.
That's a great one because again, it includes it's his writing, it's his acting, and I think that's when he shines the best is when he's involved with the writing. And I know that he apparently considers himself more of a writer than he does an actor, which blows my mind because I think he's a great actor and comedic performer, but apparently he thinks of himself more as a writer.
There was a roast that he was on, and I want to say it's James Franco. I'm pretty sure it's James Franco. And Bill Hader, when I think of the ultimate Comedy Central roasts and people that have been roasted and whatever, his roasting of James Franco, he comes out as a character, so he's playing a character, and the character's Hollywood. So he's embodied Hollywood, and he's just oh my God, it's so good.
I think I've seen it. It's just that I know I've seen it at some point in my life, but I can't recall.
You'll love it. If you love Bill Hader,
yeah.
you will fucking love this. It's probably 10 minutes long. It's so good. That's not on my list, but so yeah, Saturday Night Live, that's my number one. Then Superbad.
Okay. See, this is an example of a movie where I like him, but not the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul. Have you seen Paul?
Yes.
The Alien.
Yes.
I like that one. Not just because it's my name, but funny movie. Forgetting Sarah Marshall. So he has a small part in that where he's just Jason Segel's, I guess stepbrother or something like that. And have you seen that movie?
Yes.
Do you like that movie?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. It's okay.
I've seen, it's one of those films that I think probably, if I don't remember it at all, it probably made very little impact on me. Okay. Yeah. There's certain kinds of comedies that don't really, do it for me, and I don't recall that one doing it for me.
Okay. So. All right. Well, yeah, it's just a small, he's basically the modern Steve Buscemi, the modern day Steve Buscemi.
That's actually a really good description.
Yeah. He's Steve Buscemi's kind of faded away now, but Bill Hader's in so much stuff. I had to Wikipedia him to figure out. Obviously I know a few things.
A lot of little things.
So many things.
He just, shows up in things. So it's difficult to come up with, a top 5 that is truly just him.
Yeah.
Because it's always background for the most part.
He had a small part in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, but he had an even smaller part in Pineapple Express. But if you've ever seen that movie,
I have.
Right at the beginning, he's the guy who's testing the weed. And he's whoa, and he's you know what I feel? He's what do you, they're asking him questions after he's smoked item 9, which is a joint and shit, and he's just I feel like a big plate of flapjacks. I quote him from that movie, so he has 2 minutes in the whole movie, and I quote like every line he says, and then he does like he pretends he's playing the trumpet. And just, like, oh my god.
Have you ever seen him pretending to be a velociraptor?
I don't know.
Oh, so
I don't
like
know, but
just
it sounds
go
hilarious.
on YouTube and there's like different examples of him going on talk shows where they're like, do your velociraptor, and he just contorts his body and makes the noises and sticks out his head. It's so fantastically stupid, but I think that's something I like as well.
That's what he's good at.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I love him.
All right,
and I think he's cute. I
do, eh? I do. He's got a big forehead.
I have a huge crush on him.
I got a big forehead, so I'm not saying like anything, but like he definitely has a big forehead.
Guys that are funny are like immediately waved. Like I also, it's embarrassing, but I have a huge crush on Bob Odenkirk as well.
Oh wow, that's another big forehead.
Yeah. See? What does it mean?
I've made notes of all the dudes who have been. Aaron Paul also has a very big forehead.
I also think he's cute.
Yeah, oh my god. All right, let's do flavors of ice cream.
Okay.
You can go first.
This is serious.
This is good. I like doing food-related ones. I don't get to do them a lot.
Oh,
so,
really? Oh,
yeah.
Food is like my life. Basically,
right.
It's mostly what I talk about. Okay. I am an ice cream snob. So my ice cream flavors will be based on where you can get them.
Word. I have a couple like that.
Yeah. So one of my favorites of all time, as pedestrian as it sounds, is Bang Bang peanut butter and jelly. So it's a beautiful.
I've never had peanut butter and jelly ice cream.
It's like, so Bang Bang's in Toronto. It's on Ossington. Mm-hmm. It's one of those places, unfortunately, where it's so popular and so busy, and they haven't expanded. So it's like in the summer, you are going to be waiting a while, which is not ideal. Like, I'm not a fan of waiting in lines, but I will wait in line for Bang Bang. I don't go very often. So it is a really luscious peanut butter base. So the whole base is peanut butter based. It's not like little flecks of peanut butter or little swirls. It's like very, very intensely creamy, high fat content cream with the peanut butter mixed in. I don't know if they make their own peanut butter. I don't know what they use. It could be something like Kraft. I have no idea. But it just has this really subtle peanut butter flavor. And then it has swirls of jam in it, which I think is house made. I don't think it's like from a jar like Smucker's or something. It is just so simple and it's so pure to me. And I especially love getting it at Bang Bang. You can do cookies. Mm-hmm. So I get it between the birthday cookies. Okay. Which are just like basically lemon cookies. So it's like the peanut butter and jam with chewy lemon cookies on the outside. Is like, it's like a mix. Meal. Yeah. So that's my number one.
Dig it.
For me right now. How about you?
Okay. All right. I'm going. What did I go? Oh, okay. Pistachio almond.
Oh, that's a classic flavor.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
And two nuts as well. The two nut factor.
It's my number one. And sometimes, like, I'll get like I like milkshakes, and just I don't know. Sometimes I'll just get a pistachio almond milkshake. It's great. You can get any of those ice creams at Baskin Robbins turned into milkshakes. Are we going back and forth? Do you want to go?
We can. Yeah, we can go back and forth. So my second one is an ice cream company that they're not defunct. They still exist in Toronto, but they started doing like small manufacturing. So they shut down their actual brick and mortar location, and now they're selling through like certain independent grocers. Gotcha. So it's a company called Wong's Ice Cream. Which is based on all Asian flavors. The guy who started it is named Mr. Wong, and so he wanted to create ice creams that were based on like childhood flavors growing up, and it's their Vietnamese ice cream Vietnamese coffee ice cream rather. It is so good. Like if you like coffee, it's that perfect, and I don't know if you're familiar with drinking Vietnamese coffee, but what makes it Vietnamese, there's two main factors. Okay. Really fucking strong coffee. Like strong, that takes a while to be made because the drip process takes so long, mixed with condensed milk. So those two flavors combined within an ice cream. It's like the most delicious coffee flavor of any ice cream I've ever had. You would like, if you like coffee, I can't imagine you not liking it. And it's their number one selling flavor. They're always sold out of it. But yeah, that one for sure.
Okay.
I do?
Mine isn't super specific to a brand, just strawberry ice cream. I don't know if this came as like when I was younger and all the people that I was around didn't like the strawberries, so it's just what I ate the most. But like, I mean, yeah, strawberry ice cream, strawberry milkshakes, freaking whatever, you know?
It's a beautiful, pure classic flavor. Like, I'm never gonna shit on the classics, right? I mean, they're classics for a reason. They're gateway flavors for children. To get into the heavier shit later.
We're talking about ice cream.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
There's a company that just moved into my neighborhood that is amazing. They're called Good Gang Ice Cream. And it's run by two sisters, and they do everything themselves. Like, they have this tiny little basement location. There's a slight line, like never crazy line, but a slight line. And I'm very happy for them because they're new, so they're doing very well. But they work so hard. They do everything themselves. And I jokingly call Good Gang No Kids because their flavors do not entice children in the least. And every once in a while, you'll see like a parent who doesn't really realize what they're getting into. So like they're waiting in the line and the kid's like, ice cream, ice cream, ice. And then when they realize what the flavors are, the kids just like, their faces just sort of fall because it's not something that they're familiar with. Like they don't do, you know, the classics like vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. Like they don't do that. There's always like another factor. They have a flavor called toast, which I've actually never had toast, but there was a girl when I was waiting in line and she kept saying to her dad, like, I'm gonna get toast, I like toast, I want toast. And he's like, okay. And then they let her try it and she just went, I don't like this. And then she tossed the spoon and I was like, well, I waited in line for nothing. So they were trying to like figure out something to get her, and I think she got like chocolate miso, but then she ended up not liking it. But Good Gang's like really high on my list right now. Really unique, very similar to Wong's in terms of some of the flavors are like traditional Asian dessert flavors, but they really go off on their own thing. So one of my favorites by them right now, it's a skyr, like I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. It's the Icelandic yogurt, skyr.
I don't even know.
I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's like a very thick yogurt, very similar to Greek yogurt. Yeah. Very similar, very high protein. So it's a skyr ice cream base. And then they mix really fresh fruit compotes and jams that they completely make themselves. Like everything is fresh as hell. Like they pick their own ingredients. Like it's hardcore. So the last one I had that was a skyr based one was the skyr base with like some sort of apricot compote, maybe.
Okay.
It was so good. And the skyr makes it, I'm very passionate about it.
That's fine. I dig it.
And it makes it just so thick. Like the density and the creaminess is insane. I mean, they have so many flavors I could pick, but that was the most recent one I had. They know me there now. I'm at that point where they're like, hi, because they know I'm like that local girl who comes like twice a week, maybe. So, and how about you?
Was that 5?
No, we're only on 3.
We're on 3.
Yeah,
okay.
and just because I'm so wordy, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Actually, what you were talking, I was like, you know what? I wrote down my list, but I have a better 3. And it's not something I've had recently, so it kind of skipped my mind. But were you ever at Milk Bar? Yeah, in Toronto, and now it's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if Momofuku still does it, but like down kind of on the main floor.
Cereal milk.
Yes, cereal milk ice cream.
I knew you were gonna say cereal milk.
So
that
good,
one
and
was
they had
amazing.
like candied like what the fuck, candied like cornflakes or something. Oh my god, like it seems so simple, but it was just next level. That might even be like
that's
higher
a
on my
very good
list.
choice, and
that
also kids would like that, and like the flavors,
and like the flavors. That whole thing, everything at that Milk Bar, the crack pie.
The crack
did you
pie,
have? Oh
yes,
my God.
I did. I had the crack pie. They had those like I think they were called garbage cookies.
Yeah, yeah.
They're garbage
they
cookies,
were so good.
right?
There was something with just the whole everything.
I think they were either called kitchen sink cookies or garbage cookies.
Something along those lines. Yeah, I know the ones you're talking about.
No, they were amazing.
Yeah,
I miss Milk Bar. That is an excellent choice. And that's like a good older throwback. Okay, my next one is kind of out there. I've been to Portland quite a few times.
Okay.
And they have an ice cream place in Portland called Salt and Straw. And Salt and Straw has, I think, last time I was there, like 3 locations, last I checked. And everything they do, because it's Portland, right? Everything is fresh, everything is local, everything is grown nearby, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And they make the most like amazing, interesting profile of like flavors I've ever had anywhere in my life. Like I dream about Salt and Straw. Like I haven't been back in years. If there was a way I could ship it, I would. Like I love it that much. But they had one that was some sort of like, I don't know what it was called, but it was like heavy chunks of like ganache that they had made, like insane chunks. Like we're not talking little bits, we're talking like almost too much ganache. Like I had to like pull out chunks and kind of separate them.
Yeah.
They just pack it full of stuff. So it was like ganache, homemade ganache, chunky fudgy things. I don't really know how else to describe it. With ribbons of caramel and like pralines. Mm-hmm. And that was so good. It was so good. And it's like, I think about that. I mean, I can't remember what the flavor was called, but whatever had the chunks of ganache. And they do change things seasonally and like they make new things, but I think that's on their like permanent menu. Right. So that one.
All right. I dig it. I guess I'm just going to go... Sorry, move things around. Yeah, I'll just do my next one. Soft serve twist, like from just like...
Oh, from the ice cream truck?
Yeah, from the ice cream truck. Like whatever kind of dip you want. But like just the chocolate and the vanilla.
Yeah. And again, it's like, it's a very, like, I won't shit on it. It's a very nostalgic flavor. Like that's
Is
like,
it the best ice cream? Definitely not.
No, but it's nostalgic and it's like, it still makes you happy, right? Like, I get it because
we hear the freaking try to find one though. Like maybe in Toronto you can see them.
You can still find them.
We just hear them and then we have to walk like just
really
so many. We never find them. We hear them all the time. Really? And we can never find them around
that's
here.
That's more tragic that you hear them.
Just hearing it, yeah.
Are you sure you're hearing them?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Are they really playing?
Pretty sure. Okay. Yeah.
That's really
sure. Imagine though.
It's just in your head.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
No.
No, I don't. I don't know what you're talking about, honey. That's a very good choice as well. And to bring it on home with my last one, this is my more kind of like accessible, Nikki, I understand what you're talking about one. Okay. That would be a mint Oreo Blizzard from Dairy Queen.
Oh, word.
Yeah.
All right. It's funny that you say that because like now things have been moved around. My original 5 was a Score Blizzard.
Yeah!
But now it's gone.
I'm a fan of Dairy Queen. I know it's still trash, but I love it. I love it.
There's something about it.
It's not even like ice cream. It's iced milk.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't care.
So that's my number 6. My number 5 would be just black cherry. Like Chapman's black cherry. Yeah.
See, no, this is like, it's nice. You're like what I would call like a purist. Like your flavors are like classics, and they're classics for a reason, right? Like I tend to get really into like the more like, wow, this has a profile I've never tasted before, and that's so unusual.
Yeah, peanut butter and jelly ice cream sounds amazing, and I can't believe I hadn't had it before.
It's so good. And also at Bang Bang, if you do ever go, they have the Japanese waffle cones. So I don't know if you're familiar with like a regular Japanese waffle, but it's like a big ass waffle that has like sections in it that you can break off. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a little chunkettes in like individual bites. So you can pull one off of the waffle and eat it like in one chunk. They do the waffle, but then they make it into a cone and then they put the ice cream in the waffle. I love how into this
you are.
You have no
idea.
And
I need to try it so bad. I've never had Bang Bang.
I don't drink, and this is all I have, okay? This is like my vice. I don't have anything else. This is it. Like, if I could eat ice cream just exclusively, I would. Like, I do not get sick of ice cream.
What's the worst kind of ice cream you've had?
I would say anything where it melted, and then it was put in the freezer after it melted, and then it gets those like horrible ice crystals in it.
Yeah.
And it completely changes the texture, and it's like shards of awful.
Yeah.
Like anything like that.
Okay.
Where it's like you bring it home and you think it's okay, but then obviously like the grocers fucked up and they let it almost melt completely, and then they refroze it. Mm-hmm. So disappointing.
Yeah.
There's nothing as disappointing as that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair. All right, let's end with one of these. You pick one first.
Pick one. Okay, so I ask you? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
That exact
one really? Before. Pick another one then. If you're bored of it. Okay, I like one of these. All right, do you want to go first?
Okay, this one's easy. Because I definitely have seen you playing instruments. Do you play a musical instrument? If not, would you like to? I know you do, so let me just... What instrument would you like to play, or have you tried to learn that you just weren't able to grasp?
Okay, so I play ukulele.
Yeah.
But I play, like, I mean, it's a very easy instrument to learn. So, like, I picked it up about 10 years ago, and I don't know a crap ton of chords, but I know enough chords, like, I don't know, 16 or something, that, like, you can get away with, like, you could play most songs, right? Like, the basic melodies like, but of course, it would be a guitar that I would want to learn. Okay. And I kind of kick myself because my dad plays guitar, and my dad's a musician, and he has so many guitars and, like, classic guitars. And I had so many opportunities to, like, learn when I was younger, but when I was a kid, I thought of it as, like, that's my dad's thing.
Yeah, okay.
Right? It was like I couldn't, even though I thought it would be cool to play guitar, it was like, no, that's my dad's hobby. That's what my dad does. And so he would offer very kindly and sweetly, but I was like, nah, because in my head I was like, I'm a singer. I only sing. I don't need to learn that. But of course now I regret it. And so when I wanted to kind of make a change, I was like, well, ukulele is kind of like an easily accessible instrument.
Your dad probably's like,
what the fuck?
Fuck,
no,
man?
he actually bought me the ukulele.
Oh, he did?
No,
Okay.
No, and it has like a built-in tuner. It's like it's like a real like instrument. It's not a toy. Mm-hmm. And I love it, and I still pick it up and noodle with it. But definitely guitar or piano, I think are the most, like, piano in particular is, in my opinion, the best instrument for building songs with, like,
you can actually go in
composing with.
Like, right? there's like a lot of those instruments, like piano's one of them. I think violin is another one where it's like, you can go in any style of music that you're doing.
Yeah, anything. Yeah. And it's like, that's what all the composers use when they're writing scores, like film scores. It's all piano based. They're not figuring that out on their guitar.
Right.
When Trent Reznor is writing scores, he's not using his guitar. He's using his piano, right? So that's, I missed the boat there. Yeah.
I can play on a very basic level, a couple. I tried to learn to play drums when I lived in BC, and I was basically my cousin. He knew, like, a really good drummer, and this guy lived on, like, a huge property, so I would go and do, like, yard work for the guy, and then he would give me drumming lessons.
Oh, that's so cool. Like, in exchange for the yard work,
right?
Did you feel it was a fair exchange?
Well, I just wasn't picking... It seemed like I was just doing a lot of work, and then I wasn't picking up the drum thing. I can do, like, very basics. Like, I could play, like, Brain Stew by Green Day. Like, very basic stuff, but... one that seems crazy, like I'm super intimidated by it, is the theremin.
Oh, I know somebody.
Things are so cool.
I know someone who can play theremin.
They look just wild. I'm like, where do you even know where anything is? Like, it's
cool. They're very, and I love the sound of a theremin. Yeah, right? And like Danny Elfman's one of my favorite, like, musical composers.
Oh yeah.
And when he did Mars Attacks, it heavily features theremin, which is like the perfect instrument for that kind of a vibe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a good choice as well, theremin. Yeah, that's a cool, like, rando instrument.
What you got?
Okay, I like this question a lot. I think I know how your answer, actually. When you make a mistake that others find funny, are you able to laugh at yourself?
Oh, man. Most of the time. Most of the time I can. Sometimes, like, I'm thinking about one time in particular, or just, like, times in the kitchen, because that's why I'm a chef, like 9 to 5. That's what I do. And like, so sometimes like we just got like a new menu at like my place, so it's not really a big deal now. It's off the menu, but for like the last 3 whatever months, we've had these fucking lava cakes. We had these lava cakes on the menu. And like,
I know I'm laughing at lava cake.
No, it's okay. You probably know.
No, I know what it is, but there's something about you going lava cake.
Lava cakes. Yeah, we had them. They're the most pain in the. First of all, like, there was only 2 people who were even willing to do them, and I was one of them because they were so finicky and they just wouldn't set or they wouldn't come out of the.
Is it because like they
there
fall
was so
apart,
many different problems with them.
Okay.
They would stick to like we put them in like aluminum cups. Flip them upside down, and then they'd stick in the cup, and it's like there was so many different problems.
Fucking lava cakes, man.
And so, like, one day I did them, and I came in the next day, and I just hear, like, the executive chef and, like, my other buddy, Carrie, and Carrie's just like, no, don't say it, man. Don't say it right now. And I was like, what, guys? What? You know? And it's, like, early in the day, and, like, the day before was, like, a rough day. You know what I mean? Like, I made, like, lava cakes a couple times. And then he was just like, oh, those lava cakes didn't turn out, man. And they all tried to joke around with me, but it completely ruined my day, you know?
Aww.
Like, it was just done. I was just like, I want to fucking go home. Aww. Like, I hate it. For no reason. It was just, it wasn't a...
Was it because you felt like you like tried your best and you thought like you didn't question that they wouldn't turn out and just the disappointment?
Yeah. It's like, I guess like a certain amount of... when you put 100% into something and it doesn't turn out, it's like no joke is gonna save my, I don't know, my mind or my ego, or I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, but you get it, right?
I do get it.
Yeah, but most of the time, I'm very, very much like able to, in fact, like this is like the only situation I can really come up with right now where I wouldn't be able to like laugh at it.
Yeah.
You know?
Aww.
Yeah. You?
Overall, yes. I have a pretty good sense of humor, and like I'm usually the.
Have you ever made lava cakes though?
No. I made mug cakes.
Oh no, I know what those are. Yeah.
They're totally. By the way, mug cakes are not worth it.
No.
Like no, because it's like it's all the effort of a cake, except you have way less of it. Like, it's all the same fucking ingredients. It's like, you know, you measure like a teaspoon of this and then mix.
You're going through the process. You go through the whole thing. Like 2 mouthfuls.
It's so stupid. Like, you might as well make a full cake. That's my
okay.
my rant on mug cakes. Generally speaking, yes. I make fun of myself all the time.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's out of like defense because it's like, I can do it before someone else does. So if I can like, if I make a mistake, I'll be the first to almost bring up that I was like, look at the stupid thing I did. Ha ha ha. You know, I'm trying to think of an example where I don't necessarily have the equivalent to mug cakes, like with the way you feel. But one thing that happens to me quite frequently is I'm extremely bad at math. Extremely bad. I don't have dyscalculia. But I do have a learning disorder that we only found out about recently through my brain testing. So I had this, it's embarrassing but funny. I've really struggled with math my whole life. I'm terrible at it. I quit math in grade 11. I never went back. It was like a huge struggle. I had tutors. Like I was trying so hard, but things were like magic. Like I did not understand what people were doing. I still don't understand it. It's like magic. It really is. Like, it doesn't make sense at all. I'm like, okay, I take your word for it. Sure, it's that. So, when we did my testing, I had this unique opportunity where I said, like, hey, because they were doing all this memory mapping with my head. And I was like, is there a way I can be tested for math? Because I've always thought I had dyscalculia, but I don't know. And they were like, yeah, like, we could do that as an extra thing for you. So I tried my fucking darndest, okay? Like it's not that I studied ahead of time or tried to refresh, you know, what I knew about math. Like I just did the best I could. And then a couple weeks later, the neurologist who was studying, the memory neurologist, he like called me how we were going through all my stats for all my memory stuff, and it was really fascinating. I was like, wow, that's so interesting to know this about myself and where my strengths are and blah 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 blah. And then he was like, and about the math. And I was like, okay. And he's like, so you're in the 7th percentile of math. And my only response was, I'm bad at math, but I know that 7% is really bad. Like, I was like, okay, I know out of like 100, that's really, really bad. And I didn't have dyscalculia.
Okay.
So I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what's my excuse? Right? Like, where does... And so he basically said that I have like a disorder, like a learning disability, for lack of a better term. And he said that I should never have been expected to do the same math as other kids. So he was like, this should have been caught a lot earlier. And it's unfortunate because you were asked to do things that you like just cannot do. And I was like, it made me feel a lot better because my whole life, and I continue to almost every day, I say the dumbest math thing. And when I say dumb math things and people make fun of me, sometimes I can see the humor in it. And other times I'm mortified because like in that moment, I genuinely think I'm correct. And I'm not talking about like really complicated things, like basic concepts where I can totally flub it, or someone will tell me a number and I just can't believe it's real, where I'm like, no, really? It's that much more? Like I just can't comprehend it. So it's a little sensitive because
math sucks.
I just can't. I mean, it's so important, but it sucks.
It does.
And I'm never going to need to know the volume of a silo, you know?
Yeah,
so
right.
It's okay. But that's probably the one that like I get a little sensitive about.
All right.
But I can also see the humor in it as well.
I don't like math either. I did summer school, like all through high school, math. Like
Math?
Every summer, yeah.
I flunked out after grade 11. That was it for math for me.
All right. Do you speak more than one language? If not, would you like to?
Oh, of course I would like to. I can't imagine someone being like, no.
No, hell no.
I like the one language I speak, and that's
I speak
English.
Canadian, baby.
Yeah. No, it's fucked. Why would I learn French?
Yeah.
No fucking way. No.
Expand my mind?
Yeah,
Come
of
on.
course. Of course I would want to speak
What would you
more
learn?
than
I feel like the same. I would want to learn something.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what.
I would probably do something practical. So my sad thing is I grew up in technically a bilingual household. My grandmother is Polish. She's since passed away, and my mother is Polish. And she speaks Polish, but it was basically her first language along with English. She immigrated to Toronto when she was 4. So she spoke Polish at home and she spoke English in school. And my grandmother and my mother would speak Polish when I was growing up. But I never really, apparently, I don't really have memories of this, but apparently when I was in kindergarten, like pre-kindergarten, my grandmother almost exclusively spoke to me in Polish. I grew up with her. Like my parents raised me and my grandmother. And she got concerned when I was in kindergarten that somehow I wasn't going to be good enough at English. So she pulled back on speaking Polish to me.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have it. My pronunciation is apparently good. Like I can repeat things that are said to me supposedly with pretty decent pronunciation, but I don't know what I'm saying.
Fair.
So it's unfortunate. So of course I would.
Should we learn? You would learn Polish then?
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's the most practical. Like, honestly, in terms of practicality and where it could be valuable, I'd probably choose Mandarin.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a language that a lot of people use. It's very coveted if you can speak Mandarin as well as English. Either that or French for the same reason, at least in Canada.
Yeah.
That is very valuable. But what language would I actually want to learn just for the fuck of it? Icelandic.
Okay. All right.
How about you?
I honestly don't know. If anything, I think just French for the practicality. And I'm French. So
I was going to say you have a French. I was just going to say that. Don't you have a French last name?
Yeah.
Does your family speak French?
No.
No?
No. French, Canadian, and Italian, but I know more of... I was raised in foster homes and stuff, so I know more of like my Italian side. Yeah, but yeah, French, I guess I would learn.
Yeah. No, it's very practical, especially in here. Like, if you can get a government job where you speak French, that's it, man. You golden handcuffs right there. You got it. That's a good one. Okay.
Let's do your last one.
This is my last one. Okay. I enjoy this one too.
All right.
How often do you try new things or uncomfortable things? And what's a recent example?
New things or uncomfortable things. Well, first of all, I try to do them as often as possible. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
You had a baby. That's new.
That is
that's very new and, very, very different.
Yeah. I'm super afraid of heights. I went bungee jumping. It was a bit
Get
ago.
Out!
Yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a few years ago, but it was like hectic. Just even like walking on the bridge is like 160 feet in the air, whatever.
So what made you do that?
I just don't like fear controlling me,
Wow.
That's what I'm like. If I'm just the kind of guy where it's like I like to be in control of myself. Do you know what I mean?
That's gutsy.
Like I don't really like drinking and I don't do like hard drugs, and it comes from that. I've been like hard drug free for like over 10 years and stuff now, so I don't know. Maybe it all stems from that, just not having control for so long.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's impressive though. Like
I would like to go skydiving at some point too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no interest.
No.
I'm not afraid of heights at all. Like I will lean over things and look like nothing like that. I just like. It's what I refer to as the perception of safety. If I perceive something as safe, I will do it. Mm-hmm. If I'm not sure if it's safe, I will not want to do it. So I've been hang gliding. That was safe feeling to me. I had no problem. I've done zip lining, tree trek walk, jumping off of cliffs. I've done only a couple times. That actually really
into water though.
Into water,
yeah. Okay.
Onto dirt.
I know. I'm like, where are we going? Right?
Where are you going? Into tumble fall. But yeah, I could not do that because I always think of the like. That'd be a really crappy, dumb way to die. Like, that one time. But it does sound really thrilling. And, like, I like the drop, the what's it called? The Wonderland Tower drop thing.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know what it's called now.
Drop
tower, drops.
Tower of Terror. I don't know.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that thing. I love. But, wow, that's very brave. I'm really impressed by that. I couldn't do that, I don't think. Too scary.
What about you? How often do you try new things?
All the time.
All the time? Yeah, it's important. You
All
got
the time.
it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, and I like challenge. I mean, obviously comedy is probably the most recent example, but like I would say the past like 20 years of my life, I've gotten into this thing where if I'm interested in something, I just do it now, and I'll just reinvent myself over and over and over again.
Do you ever wish like you started something sooner? Like I got into comedy like going on 5 years, like later on this year, and I just wish that I did it sooner,
I do wish I started comedy sooner, but I also had so many other things going on when I was younger that I don't know how I would have been able to upkeep it along with the other things, like being in a band. I was sculpting for years. I was selling my sculptures for years. Like, I don't know how I could have been able to moosh that all together. Yeah, but no, I think it's really important to try new things. And the biggest takeaway or moral, I guess, I could give people is it's okay that you're not immediately good. That should be expected. And I think a lot of people just give up trying things because they want to be like, they just assume they'll be great right away. And they just get so disappointed or frustrated, they give up before they've even given it a chance. Yeah. And it's unfair. Like, if you're really interested in doing something or learning something, give yourself some grace because you're brand new. Like, you're not gonna be good. Like, unless you're like some fucking star, which most people are not. You're not just gonna discover, I have this hidden talent, right?
Yeah.
So
very, very rare.
Yeah.
All right.
Good questions. Good questions.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, topics.
I guess we can get out of here. You can let the people know where to get at you if you'd like.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm actually not on social media very much, but the two best ways you can find me is on Instagram at strange_miss. That's MISS, strange_miss. And I also am in a little silly series called Shed Life on Instagram. It's a sketch show.
I've seen a little bit of that.
Yeah. I'm featured occasionally. I'm the overly optimistic neighbor that comes and goes.
And you have like this giant place.
Yeah. I have
like,
this, yeah,
like open the shed and it's like
a
mansion
my
inside.
sketches are my shed is a mansion compared to the other two characters. And so you can follow us at at Sheddy Life, spelled SHEDDY Life, and we're also apparently, I think, on TikTok and YouTube, but I don't manage any of that. I just kind of come and go into Shed Life, but I think it's a funny little series, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, check it out.
Want to kill 6 minutes? You know,
why not?
Why not? Watch all of them.
Yeah. All right, guys. Like always, this podcast is brought to you by Neon Light District. Hit them up. Use code PillowTalk to save 10%.
Ooh.
And by The Great North Apparel. Hit them up and use code PillowTalk to save 30%.
Dang.
Just want to thank Nikki for being here. It's been a great episode and it's been a pleasure.
I had such a good time. And thank you for indulging in my ice cream love.
Oh, I love ice cream as well. Anyways, guys, thank you for sticking around and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Peace the fuck out.
Bye.